Laguna Bacalar is home to giant living stromatolites. And stromatolites are the oldest life form known to Earth. If we are here, right now, breathing, walking and talking is thanks to them. And Laguna Bacalar is one of the last places in the world where we can admire this link to the most remote past of our existence.
At the time that stromatolites first formed, there was nothing living on land. There was only stuff living in water. So these guys figured out a way to utilize the land. And the way they did that is by secreting this calcium covering that makes them look like rocks. So they secrete this layer of calcium over them to protect themselves from sunlight, and just beneath that calcium coating is where the blue-green algae lives. So that's how you can kind of see there's like layers. You can see just kind of like greenish tint right along the edges of the algae, and it's covered in a calcium layer. And then it's always a competition, so they build on top of each other, and then they make these stacks that you can see today. And because they're covered in calcium, they just look like rocks, and if you don't know any better, they're just not much, they're not that exciting. What's exciting is that, I mean, these things have been around for billions of years, and these ones are still living. I mean, not the same individuals that have been around for billions of years, but the same species of organisms. From what we know in terms of evolution, where these were the dominant organism on the planet. They were the only organism on the planet. And that's what's so cool about them, is that these are our ancestors. It goes back. This is where all life arose from. And so it's a deep connection to every part of biology, every bit of life on the planet. This is where we come from, and they're still alive, and it's really unique. It's a really it's a treat to be able to see something that's this historical, I guess. And historical, I feel, is even like doesn't do the word justice.
Well, I had never been to Mexico, and I decided to come down, and I arose here in Bacalar. It was dark out, so I could not see the lake. But the next morning I got up, and I walked out on the pier, and the pier was actually built on top of the largest stromatolite that I've ever seen. And I looked at it, and I said, "Oh my God, that is a stromatolite." And that's how this all began. I shared the information with a very small group of people, and I came down in August, and then after that I had to think for a very long time whether or not I wanted to expose these stromatolites, because I knew doing research on the stromatolites would make them world famous. And in the end, I decided that I would. The reason is that every place I've seen where you kind of try and ignore a situation that's really quite wonderful in the world, a natural resource, it ends up being exploited. So the stromatolites are incredibly important to conserve because they're so unique in the world. I decided that I would start a research project, and I've been back every year since 2007, and the project has grown and grown. Oh my God. Everyone, come and look at this. Beautiful. First one I've seen. Tim, Oscar, you should line up for this. Okay? Beautiful, gorgeous, absolutely. And then everyone, this is your area here.
Oh.
See it? That's a
Yes.
hydra.
Oh.
Yeah,
He's
it's
moving,
a-
he's moving.
It's a selenite. Yeah, gorgeous. Let's see if it's. Oh, it moved. Hold on. That's why you're hanging out. Oh, it retracted. They actually go through a contraction burst that's timed. Here, Tim, come here. Come here. Don't be walking away from these invertebrates.
Like a sea, those sea flowers there, you know, those sea fans.
See it? Each time I look at the ecology of the lake, I discover something new. The diversity is fabulous in the stromatolites, and it really is a wonderland of ecology and biology. In 2009, we had a symposium that I said we had. I called these the Laguna Bacalar, I call it a world-class lake. And it really was. I mean, it is a world-class lake. There are very, very few lakes in the world that have that designation.
For one thing, it's in a unique setting here in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's the second largest lake in Mexico. It has been until recently, I think, relatively undiscovered, so it has been undeveloped on the shoreline, but obviously that's, from my even limited observation, that's changing. And as development increases and more people enjoy the lake, it puts pressure on the system. And so it's important to understand the impact we have on the lake as people. One of the things that happens to lakes as they become polluted with conventional pollutants, like nutrients, primarily phosphorus and nitrogen, into the lake, primary production increases. The algae respond to it. And so what we're trying to do is get an estimate, just a few numbers at least, on the differences between how much production is in the water column versus how much occurs on the bottom. And the question you really want to know for this system is how is it changing over time? And sampling for a couple days every year is not going to do it. You really need a long-term monitoring program in the lake in order to understand what's happening to it.
Okay, so you measured down here the speed, right? Meters per second, the flow. At that spot, the flow is going that fast
Okay.
for this whole area. This amount of water is moving at 3, and this one is moving at 4. So, distance, depth, speed
This is the speed of the water.
of the water.
Okay.
I've been working here now for 4 years, and my goal is to understand the physical flow of the water through the lagoon and the geochemistry behind it. So I'm looking at all the dissolved species in the water and the flow of water, because it's an unusual lake. You know, most lakes have rivers coming in and out, but this is a completely groundwater fed lake. There's no river inlet, and the only river outlet is the Pirates Channel, and that is really groundwater that's just being shunted out. And that's a hard thing to do, is figure out how the groundwater is flowing in and out, you know, so we can try to understand the residence time of the lake. Because if you're worried about the pollution in the lake, it's very important to know how quick it flushes through.
Right now, we're at the Cenote Azul in Bacalar. We're south of the town of Bacalar. And in this cenote, some of our colleagues had observed stromatolites growing along the wall.
Es que Alex se las puse porque creo que ahí nada más.
¿Segunda ya está hecha acá?
Creo que acá está. No, ¿por dónde está?
Ah, bien, eso.
Está bien clarito.
¿Cómo les fue?
¿Bien?
¿Están suavecitos?
No, están muy duros. Pero con el cincel.
Y después de los 15 metros de profundidad hacia abajo, ya empiezas una pared vertical llena de estromatolitos que están como en losas, como en capas, y se va hasta los 50 metros, más o menos aproximadamente, pero bueno, no se ve muy bien, pero sí es una pared completa llena de estromatolitos.
We have seen in another lake, in Lake Alchichica, that the cyanobacteria are different with depth. And so there's different bacteria that adapt to different conditions. And as soon as the divers dove, we stopped seeing them. This is a very deep cenote, and so the light level goes out quickly. And so we want to know what adaptations the microbes are here. I think that we're going to have different microbes down in depth. Especially cyanobacteria are going to be different. And that's going to be very interesting to understand this whole system of the Bacalar Lagoon. These are very ancient life forms that are living today, and they help us understand the evolution of life on Earth. We have also seen in some of the sites we have sampled that if there is a lot of human impact on the structures, they lose diversity. That is happening in certain sites in the surface of Laguna Bacalar. We don't expect to see this in the Blue Cenote because no one else has sampled before in depth. But we still don't understand how we are changing these environments. We're really just starting to study them in a more systematic manner. And we have to start and continue these studies to understand, to know in the future what changes to expect and how to control our development and how we do tourism and how we interact with nature to understand better what's happening.
When I was asked to come here 3 years ago to study the mangroves and to teach the students about the mangroves, I was just impressed with the fact that these mangroves are growing in fresh water. It's such a unique, I've never seen anything like that before.
Really?
Yeah. And as you drive from Bacalar towards the ocean, you go along a salinity gradient. And so again, here it's essentially fresh, and then you get into this mixture of, so the fresh water is moving out and the ocean's moving in, and you get a mixture, and that's brackish. And so you go from fresh to brackish to full-on marine systems. And this species is found all on that gradient, and so we can look at how changes in saltwater or salinity influence productivity, influence fish assemblages, insect assemblages, biogeochemistry. So it's a really incredible natural laboratory to conduct experiments in.
This is a fantastically beautiful lake. I mean, you want to protect it. At the same time, you know, tourism is an economic force. This community needs that kind of income. And they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, you can protect the system and have a healthy economy at the same time. That's important. But you got to recognize that you got to protect it. You don't want to kill a goose that lays the golden egg, in other words.
So I hope it's preserved. I really hope it's preserved. We're working with scientists from Mexico City and Ecosur in Chitamo, and working as hard as we can to understand the science of the lake and also social aspects of the lake as well.
Mira, existe un problema de visión, un problema de conciencia, en donde muchas personas, principalmente los prestadores de servicios, pues gente de gobierno, no se ha dado cuenta que el crecimiento, aunque este implica una derrocha económica, un crecimiento no planeado también implica destrucción, implica contaminación. Hay mucha gente que únicamente ve por el lado económico, únicamente ve por el hecho de tener su hotel, tener su restaurante, tener su empresa, que llegue gente, que se llene de gente el pueblo, que se llene de gente en su hotel, Y sin embargo no pensamos que esta gente que llega, todos sus desechos, tanto la basura que generen como sus desechos orgánicos, ¿dónde están terminando? ¿Dónde van a parar? Si no tenemos drenaje, si no tenemos un plan de saneamiento de aguas, bueno, vamos a decirlo, de reciclar la basura. No existe un plan de saneamiento para la basura, un plan para tratar la basura. Todo esto que no estamos trabajando, ¿dónde va? ¿Dónde termina? ¿No? Y la respuesta es termina en la laguna.
El problema de las aguas pluviales también es el hecho del acarreo de todas las basuras, de todos los desechos que se están tirando actualmente, que si son los aceites de los restaurantes o de los talleres automotrices y demás, que tienen un altísimo grado de contaminación. Esto se repite en todos los centros urbanos que actualmente ya existen y que no carecen totalmente de drenaje, como es Xulhá, como es Pedro Santos, como es Buenavista, como es Isidro La Laguna, Miguel Hidalgo, que no necesariamente tienen que estar junto a la laguna para contaminar. Entonces esto es la parte muy importante. En el caso específico de Bacalar, que tiene un incipiente sistema de drenaje, puesto que cubre apenas un 10-15% del área urbana, pero además la población que está, digamos, servida por este sistema deficiente no está conectada más que en un 10 o 15%. Los demás siguen utilizando fosas sépticas que al final de cuentas son contaminantes, o simple y sencillamente los hoyos negros que le llaman.
Las prácticas agrícolas industriales que se desarrollan en la zona, que implican un gran desmonte de selva baja, de los últimos remanentes de selva baja, y el uso de gran cantidad de agroquímicos, todo esto termina filtrándose al subsuelo, en el sistema hidrológico, que al final llega a la laguna, e incluso muchas veces termina directo en la laguna. Todo esto cambia la composición físico-química del agua. Por lo tanto, si la composición del agua cambia, lo van a hacer también la composición de las comunidades biológicas que forman a la laguna de Bacalar y a todos sus ecosistemas.
Llegué a Bacalar con mi familia hace casi 19 años. Cuando yo llegué aquí no había una sola lancha. Solamente había un viejito que ya falleció, que tenía su lanchita y hacía tours para locales. Era así como algo muy especial y no los hacía todo el tiempo. Creo que los hacía una vez cada 6 meses. Pero no había nada de motores. Ni kayaks, ni nada, ni veleros. Antes de saber lo que eran los estromatolitos, era obvio que estaban vivos. Y mucha gente aquí también podía sentirlo, que eran como piedras vivientes. Pero no tenían idea de cuál era su origen, ni qué tan antiguas eran. Entonces no había mucho respeto tampoco. No tanto de la gente local, que pues casi no nadaban. Había muchas supersticiones sobre la laguna, de que te podía comer una anaconda gigante. Entonces no nadaban, ¿no? Los niños sí, en el balneario iban a nadar. Pero los estromatolitos eran usados para construir muelles, para rellenarlos de cemento.
We have a sampling site down in the rapids where the most beautiful stromatolites are. They're absolutely stunning. And I can tell you in the area where the restaurant is, the stromatolites are being destroyed. They won't allow boats up in there, but there's so many swimmers and they're walking all over the stromatolites and they are destroying the stromatolites. They're huge places where the stromatolites have been just kicked off. So something's going to have to be done. This is a political matter. It's an economic and political matter more than anything. And a social matter. You have to get the people in this area to really support the ecology of the lake. Because if they don't, they'll lose it. Yes. And when they lose it, their children and their young children will not wake up in the morning and look out over Laguna Bacalar and see what they saw when they were young. Because it will just be another green lake. And Bacalar will just be another small city in Mexico.
I think it's all about education too, you know. The more you know, the more interesting this stuff is. And I think that's a big reason why I like coming down here is I've been given a really good opportunity to learn a lot about biology and why things like stromatolites, while they might not look interesting, why they are interesting. And if we can teach people that, they have a better appreciation for biology as a whole. And how we fit into things and how we are not separate from nature, I think is something that really is important for people to understand so that we can try and live as sustainably and preserve these things for other people to see and enjoy the way I get to enjoy them.
It's impossible not be touched by the beauty of the Laguna Bacalar. So it's not surprise that people will want to visit it. But we also need to realize that the lagoon is much bigger than us all. She is a huge source of knowledge about life on our planet. No one fully knows how much Laguna Bacalar and the stromatolites can teach us about ourselves and the way nature adapts. It's in our hands to decide in which direction we want it to go.